Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to an all-new episode of GVN Interview. I'm your host, Juwaan, and today I have a very special guest, somebody, and I rarely do this, but somebody that as soon as I finished the series, I immediately called my editor-in-chief and said, get me this interview. Like, whatever needs to happen, go get me this interview. I am joined by none other than Ted Humphrey. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for championing us to your editor.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was a massive fan of the Matthew McConaughey
Sure.
movie, Lincoln
Me
Lawyer.
too. Yeah.
When I heard about this, I was like, okay, usually when we see things taken from a movie like that, it sometimes isn't, doesn't live up to what the movie did or whatever.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, all right, I cleared my head. I said, all right, I'm jumping right into this. Episode 1, the first 25 minutes, I'm like, I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. I love everything about this. And so the first thing I wanted to start off with, because like I said, I am a massive fan. But like what went into making this happen? Like what went into the idea of like, okay, this is a product we need to dive back into.
Sure.
Because we saw the movie do it.
Well, sure, I can talk about that. It was a long and winding road to get where we are. And a lot of that has been written about, or there's probably articles about it out there that, originally this show was set up at a different place. It was set up at CBS. That was back, about 3 years ago now, that this show got set up at CBS with, David Kelly was involved and Michael Connelly, obviously, and a guy named Ross Feynman took it to CBS, and I came aboard at that point. I had a deal at CBS Studios, and I came aboard to kind of partner with David in developing the show and then run the show. And we did develop it. And right from the get-go, not to say anything bad about CBS because they're great at what they do, but right from the get-go, it was a little bit of an odd fit, I felt, for that network. We wanted to do a serialized show, very much the show that you see. And, that's not something they usually do, but they were all kind of gung-ho, like, no, we want this. And so we proceeded, and then COVID hit basically and shut us down really just like a couple of days before we were supposed to start shooting. And we were like, okay. And then, again, this has been written about. CBS then pulled the plug on the show. And there's very competing reasons out there as to why did COVID have something to do with that, whatever. Personally for me, I just think like, there was a new leadership at CBS at that point, and they probably went, maybe this isn't, especially in a landscape where COVID is kind of at that moment decimating the broadcast TV industry. They lost all their sports, they lost all the advertising. Maybe we need to retrench and go back to kind of meat and potatoes procedural CBS shows.
Right.
So when they did that, it enabled us to pivot and set it up at Netflix, which really was a much more sensible home for it, a place that made a lot more sense, where instead of having to maybe make 22 episodes, we could just make 10 like we did in the first season, and really tell the story the way we wanted to tell it. So, we, in a way, we kind of looked into that, I guess, but it was the thing that made sense all along, basically. And so that's how that came about. As far as just adapting the show, the movie was 10 years ago, and there was a sense that the movie was really good, but it was kind of a whole different version of it. And let's go back to the books and let's do, let's honor that. And so that's where that came from.
And one thing I love and hate about what you guys do with this show is, like you just said, doing 10 episodes, right? So for somebody like me that's growing up on channels like the CW that'll stretch something out to like 22, 23, 24 episodes, I very much was like 10, perfect. But I said 10 perfect before I started it. The minute I started,
you wanted more.
I said, there's no way it's going to get to 10. And I'm going to feel like 10 was a good number. As soon as I got to like the last 2 minutes of episode 10, I said, I need a confirmation. I need something. I just need more. I had to go back and rewatch the whole thing again.
Right.
It's just, to me, I kind of feel, absolutely, I kind of feel like courtroom dramas, right, are something that are so hit and miss, especially when you add hints of like essentially like a whodunit, right? And I've always said whodunits are rare, right? It's why the world is crowning what's his name for the movie for Knives Out.
Knives Out. I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're
good.
crowning him
So
for
much
Knives
fun.
Out.
Yeah.
But again, I think Knives Out was brilliant. But I
It was
think
awesome.
one of the reasons why Knives Out is being crowned is as it is because it's not many out there. It's not many whodunits out there that are on that level.
Right.
So I wanted to pass this back to you by saying this is on that level. This is on that level to where I was continuously guessing. Like, okay, all right, it's this. And then it's like, no, that person died. So it's not that, it's this. Oh, no, where did that person come from? So, like, when approaching this, did you approach this as like, okay, or did you guys as a team approach this like, okay, we're going to make sure this is like a legal drama and stick to the essence of that with sprinkles of whodunit? Or was it kind of like a culmination of like, all right, we want to do all this and kind of make it stick?
Well, again, we went back to the books, right? And it's kind of it goes to answering your question about the movie. The movie was great, but we weren't adapting the movie. We were adapting the books. And the only concession we made really to the movie, I've seen the movie and it's great, but the only real concession we made to it was that the movie told the story of the first book. And so we felt, well, maybe we should start with the story of the second book. And we worked in some aspects of the first book, right? But going back to the books are whodunits, and the books are these really compulsive page turners. And I say that in the best way because sometimes page turner can be pejorative, and I don't think it is at all, particularly when it applies to Michael's books. I mean, I think they're literally in the best way, the books you can't put down because they're smart and they're nuanced and they have something to say, and yet at the same time you get to the end of a chapter and you want to go to the next chapter. And that's what we kind of endeavor to do with the show, is make a show that you got to the end of an episode and you want to go to the next episode. And the whodunit aspect is part of that. It is really hard. I won't mince words. It is really hard to keep that going over 10 episodes. God, it would have been very hard to keep going over 22. To keep people guessing. I mean, we were never going to do the whole story of this book in 22. There's just not enough. We probably would have done 8 or 10 and then pivoted to some other story, but it would have been an odd, I think, format, right?
Right.
So, the whodunit aspects that are there are very much honoring what's in the book. We did build on them. And Michael Connelly loves to do that. And he's such a great partner in having these things because he's really open to, and in fact, not just open to, but super excited about like expanding what's in the books, changing what's in the books, and mixing things up from different books and whatever. So we built on them to have enough story to tell over 10 episodes and keep the audience guessing, like you're talking about.
Right. And the one thing you guys, outside of the whodunit and outside of just nailing, because one thing I've always been interested in is like law, right? Never wanting to be on the other side of it, but just knowing law. And that was one thing that Mickey really did, especially those confessionals he would do where like he's being driven and he's kind of just telling about like what's about to happen. Just freaking epic. So one of the things I wanted to touch on that I loved was, obviously we talked about it before, we had Matthew McConaughey do this role 10 years ago, right? And one thing Matthew McConaughey can do in his sleep is charm.
Yes.
Right? So the biggest thing I was looking for in this show was like, okay, how do you bring that charm? And can I just say, you guys did charm in a way I haven't seen in a while. And that's one of those natural charms, right? So like you don't have to get someone who's like, oh, a supermodel or anything. It's just a natural charm. Like it's just like people just kind of gravitate towards this person. So like being a producer, I know sometimes, sometimes producers oversee castings or whatnot, but do you know what went into like this actor, like why he had to be the guy? Because I think you nailed it. I think this was a perfect way to go because like I said, the charm was just natural. Right. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't being sold something. I just bought into it. Like, I love this.
Well, I mean, that's all Manuel. He's so terrific in this part. And yeah, no, I mean, so in the books, Mickey Holler is half Mexican. His father is a white, very famous criminal defense attorney in Los Angeles, kind of a Robert Shapiro sort of guy, like represents OJ and big celebrities and mobsters and people like that, right? Very, very famous. And you see that in the show. We meet him in a flashback at one point in the show. And that's who, Mickey's named after him, and obviously, follows in his father's footsteps in terms of what he does for a living and everything. His mother is a Mexican actress, kind of like a B movie actress, like a telenovela actress or something, who comes to LA and, is never that successful necessarily as an actress, but ends up, marrying Mickey's dad. And it's sort of a later in life, there's a big age difference. The mother's much younger and the dad's older. It's that whole kind of thing. So that's all in the books. And obviously the movie did not, they cast McConaughey, who's not Mexican American, and that, that was 10 years ago, and that's what they did at that time. We very much, and Netflix very much was focused on, let's go back to the books and let's definitely cast, a Mexican or Mexican American actor. And so we began to search for who that is. And the great thing about Netflix is they don't have, unlike some of the networks where you really have to have like a big star to be the single lead in your show. It's got to be somebody who's got a certain Q rating or whatever they call it, where like enough people will tune in just because that person's in it. And Netflix is really open to, we can sort of cast anybody as long as they're the right person for the part. And so we really kind of beat the bushes and looked at so many different choices for this part. And to be perfectly honest, I was kind of beginning to despair a little bit that we were going to find the right person. It's a tough part to cast, to get somebody who's got that charm that you're talking about, who also is Mexican or Mexican American, who has, the ability to handle the legal stuff that you're talking about or whatever. And Manuel auditioned for the part, auditioned by Zoom. It was during COVID, and auditioned by Zoom from Mexico, submitted a tape, and just immediately blew us away. We just kind of watched it and went, oh wow, I think this is the guy, and then there was another audition and whatever. And so that's what went into casting Manuel specifically. Now he did, and he's been very open about this. English is his second language. He struggled a bit. This is a really tough part. There's a ton of dialogue. I mean, again, lawyers, and especially a courtroom heavy show like this, when you're in court and you're giving like closing arguments and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And TV, movies, anything, you never have unlimited time to do it. There's a budget and there's a schedule, and you got to keep to that schedule. And the schedule is daunting, and especially for him in this part, he's in almost every scene.
I was about to say,
he's very much the focus of the show. The show is called The Lincoln Lawyer, obviously, right? And so it really is about him. And so it was a struggle, but he's such a trooper, and he just brought it. And the charm is effortless. The charm is him. I mean, it's a very different charm, I think, from McConaughey's charm, but it's very real, and this is a very relatable. I think you watch this person, you go, that's a real person. And we endeavored to do that with all of our casting, just cast people where you go, that's a real person. I've actually met that person. I've actually seen that person, right?
Right.
And I do just want to say, because you brought it up, I'm so thankful that you mentioned the stuff about the legal talking in the car. That comes from the books. When we set out to do this, I looked at the books and I said, these books are all told in first person narrative. They're all told from Mickey's point of view, which is very different from the Bosch books that Michael also writes, which are told third person for the most part, right?
Right.
And part of the reason why I think he chose first person narrative in those books is that it gives Mickey the opportunity to convey directly to the reader the subtle legal nuance behind what he's doing. And some of it's really, really interesting, and stuff that would go over the audience's head if you didn't explain it to them, because you're not. Right. I'm a former lawyer myself, but obviously most people aren't. And so I struggled with, how can we dramatize that without just doing traditional voiceover? Of course, you could do voiceover. Lots of shows do voiceover. I think voiceover is a little overused sometimes. And I didn't want to just do traditional voiceover. And I thought, what way could there be that we could sort of dramatize that, but make it interesting and make it not just feel like exposition or whatever. And so that's what we came up with. So it's really gratifying to hear that you responded to it, and other people are responding to it. So
I loved every ounce of it. And I'm glad you said that, because there's too many lawyer shows to where they'll get into lawyer jargon and you're kind of just like, I guess I know. Yeah, I guess I know what you're talking about.
Sure.
So Mickey very much breaks it down. And look, what I love most about the show was you were struggling with Mickey, right? So like, this was his rebound. This was him. Right. This was his big comeback.
Right.
So I love the moments to where he's in his office and he's like, I'm missing something. I'm missing something. I'm missing something. Then when he finally unlocks, like, that's what I'm missing. And you see it and you're just like, oh my God, yeah, that's huge. Like, like I'm glad you found it. Like, that's big.
Yeah.
So to me, like I said, the thing I love most, and one of the reasons why I'm glad, especially a company like Netflix, let's just stick with Netflix, kind of goes more so out of the box when it comes to castings is, to me, I kind of feel like when you do a massive casting, it's like one of those flashy lights, right? Like I'm paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And it kind of just drowns out everything else, like the supporting cast, how great they are, the story, the scenery, all the nuances that you're trying to tell. So to me, I loved every casting in here because to me, the only person I really recognize was Miss Campbell.
Wasn't there Campbell? Sure. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, oh my God, yes, the Scream Queen.
Yeah.
So me, what I loved was the story and how someone can come in and just go, oh, it's just a story about, it's not a story about loss. It's a story about second chances. It's a second about fighting your own demons. And one thing I really want to say I was very, very, very proud of with this story was I just knew it. I felt like, okay, you guys are going to go into Mickey relapses. Now we got to, and you didn't. And I love that because it's like not everybody always relapses. Some people, it hits them hard enough to where they said, I don't ever want to do that again. So can you kind of speak to that? Because I was very happy that we didn't have to spiral down again.
Yeah, I mean, it was never the intention to spiral down again. I mean, it's it's not in the book. Now, again, that doesn't mean we couldn't have done it in the show because you do have to expand on the book to make the show. There's a lot more in the show than is in the book because you'd only have 2 or 3 episodes if you were just doing the book.
Right.
But it was never our intention to spiral down again like that. Is it possible that could happen and some version of that could happen in a later season? Maybe. I mean, I won't say never, but no, this is a guy who really has his feet on the ground in a real way, right? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things, and now this is very different from what's in the book. I mean, a lot of things are different in the book. The book, if you remember the movie, he gets shot at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And in the book, the addiction is recovering from that. Mm-hmm. But we didn't want to start with a guy who'd been shot for some reason that happened off screen that you didn't see. It seemed confusing and there's a lot of backstory to fill the audience in on or whatever, So we took in the book, there was a character, the character of the driver in the book, and this was very much David Kelly's idea, which was great. He took that person who had been a surfer and made that Mickey. Mm-hmm. And then Izzy is somebody that we invented who took the place of that person and but still had the addiction that person had. So it's kind of a sounding board for Mickey, which is great. Right. And it gave us the opportunity to play that addiction story and like what it's like to recover from that with 2 people instead of 1. And really as you get later in the season, it becomes more in a way more about Izzy than about Mickey.
Right.
And ideally season 2 will continue some part of that. So but like with anything else in the show, I keep using the word verisimilitude to refer to the show. It's something that's really important to me. It's something that's really important to Michael Conley. His books very much live in like the real world of LA. The real world of LA at the time that they were written, books were written, this book was written 12 or 15 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. So we updated that world to today. So for example, the character in the show of Trevor is this tech video game guy. Whereas in the book, he was a movie producer. It just felt like, he's kind of a Harvey Weinstein-y kind of movie producer. And it just felt like it was more current to today to make him the guy that we made him, right? But in whatever it is, whether it's the story or the characters or the law or anything, or the locations in LA, we just really aim for this verisimilitude of presenting things as authentically and as accurately as we can. So we aim for that with the addiction story as well.
Yeah, and like I said, it's to me, it's more so than just the law drama or the whodunit. It's the family aspect. Right. It's the acceptance aspect. It's the overcoming your demons. It's the living up to the name your father said. Right now, it's just so many different things you guys just blended so well. Is what made this such a great show, and it goes back to what I was saying about. I love that it's actors and actresses, or just actors rather, that I'm just so unfamiliar with. So
Right.
now it just opens, my full head up to who these people are, and I can just soak in the story. I'm not worrying about like, all right, this star, let me just focus on this star.
Right.
I can just soak everything in. So like I said, I was blown away. I told you 25 minutes in, I was just like, yep, this is the one.
Oh, I'm so glad. I mean, so we do this. When I say we, I mean just, those of us who do this for a living, right? We do it for an audience. I don't make stuff to make myself happy. You got to make yourself happy, and that's part of it, right? But because otherwise I'd do something else with my life, I guess. But I do it to make an audience happy, and for an audience to respond to what you're doing is the ultimate compliment you can be paid. It's also how you keep working, because you won't be working for very long if you don't make stuff that audiences like, I guess. So
that's true.
To hear that is really, really gratifying. Thank you.
I am a massive fan. So I just got 2 more questions for you before I let you get out of here.
Please. Anything.
The first one is, I've been watching The Offer. I am a massive Godfather fan.
Me too,
Godfather is everything.
I have not seen The Offer yet, but I will watch it at some point. Yeah.
I can't wait till you do. And next time we do an interview, we could definitely talk about it and geek out about it.
Yeah.
But my question isn't anything spoiler to the show. It's more so to your profession that I'm spinning this. So watching The Offer, watching what they had to go through to make that movie happen.
Right.
You as a producer today, are the hardships still a thing, or is it more so just like there's so many avenues to put out content that it's like somebody will take it? You know what I'm saying? Or do you kind of feel like it's one of those where it's like it's hard to sell literally to anybody? Does it still feel like that landscape today?
100%. Again, I haven't seen The Offer, but I do know quite a bit about the backstory of The Godfather. We don't have the mafia in New York.
Oh, right.
Picking us or whatever, right? So I mean, we maybe didn't have the hardships that they had. That's a particularly extreme case, I suppose. But
yes, the most extreme.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's really hard. I always say to people, to like young people who are trying to break into this business, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing I say is why, and then
so we can make great shows like Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah, no, I understand why, but look, there's more outlets than ever. There's also more competition than ever, right? And it never ceases that there are 20 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever, more projects and people out there pitching stuff than there is room for anybody to make stuff, right? So it's always hard. And a very famous saying by the famous screenwriter William Goldman is nobody knows anything, right? And what he meant by that is nobody knows what's going to be successful. If they did, then nobody would ever make a flop. Everything would be a hit. I mean, obviously, right? So, at the end of the day, and you hear a lot about, the algorithm at Netflix or whatever, it's all nonsense. It's people. At the end of the day, it's people, whether it's Netflix or any streamer or movie studio or TV studio or whatever it is, it's people who are making a gut call at the end of the day. Yes, they have data or market research or whatever to tell them we think this or that will be successful. But at the end of the day, it's people making a decision to go with X instead of Y. Right. And nobody really knows why they make that decision. I'm not sure they know why. I mean, and again, things work, they don't work, and you just try again and whatever. So, I certainly felt, we all felt, Netflix felt like this show could be successful. Mm-hmm. We have very popular, much beloved books that we're basing it on, a much beloved character. We have a great team of people making it. We have Netflix, who really has put their resources into marketing the show and launching us at the right time. And I can't be grateful enough to them for everything that they've done about that. But at the end of the day, you throw it out there and you hope. And it's been really gratifying. We're number one again today for the 7th or 8th straight day since we launched. Every day since we launched, number one in America, number one in like 66 countries around the world. It's amazing. I've never had this kind of response. Even even when I did The Good Wife, which was a very popular show.
That show's phenomenal.
Love it show. Thank you. But, it was a different landscape. It was network TV. You launched in America. You had an episode every week. Eventually, some years down the line, maybe it went overseas and people liked it. It really is the reach of Netflix and the other streamers to be able to just put stuff out there. We launched in something like 160 countries all over the world all at once. It was incredible. So it never gets easier. And I wish I could say that you sort of knew why this succeeded and this didn't. After the fact, you do. After the fact, you go, oh, I see why it succeeded because of this and that. But before the fact, you're just hoping. You're just hoping and praying.
I'm glad you said that, because that's an argument I've been having with people for, excuse me, for forever. And this will be my last question, because it's always been something that I've been curious about. And you're a producer, you're the perfect person to ask. So you've done both weekly scheduled shows,
sure,
and all at once, obviously now with Lincoln Lawyer and Netflix. Do you see consuming content all at once as the possible downfall for streaming going forward? Or do you see that? Because a lot of people are saying, like, at some point Netflix they're gonna fix that, because consuming it all at once is maybe not great for the shows. But then you're saying number one for 7-8 straight days, right. So it's like, well, you know what I'm saying? So to me, I always view it as like, all right, a movie comes out, let's say a big Marvel movie comes out,
right?
Majority of the entire world sees it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? Yeah. Thursday, Friday, Saturday now. And then usually that's it. And then all the stragglers kind of see it the following weekend, or people that want to see it again. And that never fails for a movie theater. So right. I'm like, I don't understand how that's an issue for streaming, that I get it all in one day, consume it all in one day, and make it the number one show or movie or whatever for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So do you see that as like a problem, or do you think that that's a working formula that can continue?
Well, I think it's totally a working formula that can continue. I think it varies by show or whatever it is, right? I actually think it really helped us. And because I think in essence, when you're doing something like this, that's a 10-hour long movie, mm-hmm. what you find, it is very much like releasing a movie. You find that people, they get to the end of, and again, I said, this is kind of what we endeavor to do, right? You get to the end of one episode and you want to go to the next one. That's right. Very much the model that Netflix and the other streamers strive for with this dropping everything at once, right? Mm-hmm. There is a place, I confess that I sometimes do miss the weekly model, because there are certain shows like, Game of Thrones, when it was really big, right? Where you got to the end of an episode and I spent all week going, why can't, oh my God, the anticipation, right?
Right.
So, I think it can go both ways. I think that's great too. Right. And I think that, Netflix has said they may start experimenting with dropping things weekly, or maybe dropping 2 or 3 and then dropping 2 or 3 more. I think there are other streamers that do that. They drop 2 or 3 or 4 shows, and then they drop 2 or 3 or 4 more. And so you kind of get a little bit of from column A and a little bit from column B in terms of how you do that. I think there's not any one way to do this. I think at the end of the day, if you've got a show people want to watch, they will consume it and watch it in a variety of ways, right? So I certainly don't see it as a problem, but I also see that there's just different ways to do that.
Right, 100%. And to me, I kind of feel like sometimes what a danger could be on a new show is you do it weekly, then you get to the last episode and people don't like it. Right. And now it's just like, all right, you done built all that up. No one liked it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, it like you said, there could be problems either way. There could be great things about it either way. I just don't think it was detrimental is what I was trying to
tell you. I don't think it was detrimental to us at all, because right. I think this is the kind of show that, it really is about, like, oh, wow, I want to see what happens next. I want to see what happens next. Thank you for not making me wait. And we were, we were also very focused. It's funny, there've been some reviews that, like, gave us good marks for this, that said, thank you for resolving it and not doing the killing or something where we get to the end of the season and we don't know what happened.
Right.
And, because that's frustrating too. And so
yes, it is.
We were very clear not to do that. We were adapting this book. There's an end to the book and we had an end to the story, but, we also set up what could be a season 2. So, yeah.
Look, I am praying that Netflix greenlights it tomorrow. I hope Netflix does something they never do and greenlights 5 more seasons.
Oh, that's really kind of you.
I continuously need this.
Oh, awesome.
Have you heard anything from Netflix, or is this something
Yeah,
that you gotta let it breathe a little bit more?
well, we've had discussions, and I mean, we've got in mind what a season 2 could be.
Mhm.
And we're going to run it. We've started to run that by them, and we're going to run it by them more next week. And they like to let the data marinate a little bit. It typically will take them 30, they like to get like 30 days worth of data, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's not that much. And, the data has been really, really good. So I'm very optimistic. From your lips to God's ears that they'll give us 5 more. That would be awesome.
Look, I need it, man. I need it. I want you guys to go as long as you possibly can. It's a great story. Like I said, this is something that blends family, love, triumph, redemption. And
Right.
if you love a whodunit, if you love legal drama, if you love all of that, it brings everything, literally everything. So if you guys have not seen it, please go check out The Lincoln Lawyer, streaming on Netflix. Currently #1 still, I believe,
Yes.
as it should be on its throne.
Hence the backdrop behind me.
Exactly.
That is Netflix's homepage with the top 10 shows. Yes. So
absolutely. It is where it should be, which is on its #1 throne, and we hope to keep it there. I will keep it there if I got to watch it 900 more times. I promise you that.
We love that.
I promise you that. I plan on watching it with my family this weekend. I told them
every viewed hour counts. People rewatching counts, right? Like it all counts. So awesome. Please do.
I'm going right back to that as soon as we finish this. So don't even worry about that.
And if you and seriously, if people like the show, and I really have appreciated the kind reception we've gotten from the audience and how much people enjoy it. If people like the show, watch, rewatch, but also go online and give us a good review. Go to Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or Metacritic, and give us, hit the love it button on Netflix. All that stuff counts. All that stuff matters in terms of the things that Netflix and other people take into account in deciding how many more seasons to do and that stuff. So yeah.
I will do my part. Don't even worry about that. I'll get right on that. I'll get right on that.
Thank you.
But Ted, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that we could definitely talk more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
For any projects you have going on, but especially when this gets greenlit. Obviously not then, because you won't be able to talk about literally anything. But
a very labor-intensive business, I'll say that.
Right. But I definitely want to talk to you when you check out The Offer. And when, not if, when this gets greenlit for a season 2, and you get, a little bit towards into starting filming and everything's kind of into fruition and everything. Definitely hope to circle back and talk with you again. I always love talking to producers because random moviegoers don't really give producers much thought, right? Many producers' names aren't even known.
And random moviegoers don't have much idea what goes into a movie besides the star.
100%. So for me, I love writers, I love producers, I love talking to them because they are what makes the ship go, right?
Yeah.
Like the movie stars that people love, they're just the face you put on it, but the people behind the scenes is what fuels that. So I love talking to you guys.
It's a collaborative medium, and it's what I love about it. Actually, I love working with actors. I love working with everybody to make this. And I do always believe that the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? And so this has been a really special show because we had a bunch of really talented writers, bunch of talented actors, and directors and everything, and we all sort of came together and bounced stuff off of one another and made the best show we could. So very gratifying that people are enjoying it.
And you succeeded. So everyone, once again, please go check out The Lincoln Lawyer, streaming now on Netflix. Ted, thank you again a bunch. I love being able to talk with you today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right. Take care. Have a good day.
Take care. You too.
All right.